Hi guys, so what we're going to do is just talk about some movie news and obviously the latest and greatest things that are coming out of Hollywood right now. So what we're going to do at the start is today we're going to talk about Avengers Infinity War and the news and things that we've just heard and seen in regards to that. Captain Marvel and also news for that as well. Deadpool 2, Ben Kenobi, a Star Wars standalone story, at least that's what we think it may be called, and many more things during today's show. So the first thing we're going to have a look at is Avengers Infinity War, and we've had a new promo that's been released, a picture of Captain America. It's got Captain America, it's got Star-Lord, Spider-Man in that awesome new suit that we saw at the end of Homecoming. We've got Iron Man, we've got Teenage Groot, and we've also got Rocket. So they're obviously are weighing in this promo. And we've got Captain America. If we just look at him, for example, he looks slightly different to the official posters that we've seen coming out of Comic-Con. Now, the look of him is slightly different to what we've had before in that picture. If you just look here, for example, he looks slightly different. His beard doesn't look as rugged, his hair doesn't look as long. His top or his clothes, or his suit I should say, looks really bad still, like it's just been through the ringer. But he doesn't look as bad, so it does make me question the timeline of this film. We're not entirely sure when the film actually takes place. It's not actually told to us. We don't know that information at this point, and we haven't really got much to go on. But just based on the image here, maybe there's a bit of time that passes between the film, that his beard grows and his hair also gets longer as well, because he looks far more rugged in the images that we've seen before compared to this new shot that we've got. Also, what we've got is we've got a better look at Spider-Man in the film in that suit. We've only seen it from the distance, and obviously we had our view of it in Spider-Man Homecoming, but in this is the first time we get to have a look at it. And from what we can see, look at it, the webbing is slightly different. He's obviously got it on the mask, but it doesn't look or appear to look like he's got a lot of that on the suit itself. The giant spiders there as well, which looks pretty cool. But I do want to see more of the suit and kind of just have a proper look at it. But from what I see, this Iron Spider suit, as I'm calling it, does look pretty cool. As I say, we don't know enough about the film yet. We've obviously seen the teaser that came out, and the trailer, for those of us who have actually seen that, show that this film will be really, really cool. So there's a lot more things that are going to come out about this film. But we'll just have to wait and see, really. It's going to be good, Infinity War, and you know we'll see how it plays out. Which leads us on to our next story. Captain Marvel is going to have a script rewrite. So that's come out. The story from Nicole Perlman, the screenwriter of the film, is saying that there's going to be a rewrite. How much of that film itself, as it's been scripted as it is right now, will remain, we don't know. But we do know that the film will be set in the 90s, so we'll have a young version of what appears to be Samuel Jackson in this film, who will be portraying Nick Fury. So that will be cool to see whether they digitally enhance him or whether they keep him the same and just say that he uses some sort of aging serum and his character just kind of remains the same throughout. We've also had a series of stills from the film and some, well, I say stills. We've also had a series of concept art that's came in and gave us our first look at some of, you know, what we'll see with the character. We've got our first look at her herself in a suit, which looks really cool actually. It's quite cool, and it kind of reminds me a bit of what Captain America has with his suit, but only updated and obviously made to look like the Captain Marvel costume. Also, we found out that the Skrulls will also be part of this. They'll be the main villain, which leads us to another thing. How much are they allowed to use those characters? Do Fox still own that, or is there some sort of things being done that we're not made aware of, and this is kind of how the deal's gone down? But from the stills, they look pretty cool, and they just give us an idea of what we're going to be seeing in the film, and actually the visuals of how these Skrulls are going to look, they look pretty cool, I do need to say that. So we'll just kind of filter through and just have a look. I do hope though that they do give her a mask, and Obviously we want to see what kind of power level they give her, because Captain Marvel is quite a strong character, but I do hope that they give her the mask that she wears in the comic book. There may even be a feature, I'm being led to believe, by Marvel, the original Captain Marvel, so that would be really cool if they can make all of those elements and these things work. I don't know enough about the film yet, but I do hope that they get it together and we can just have a look at exactly what's going on. We'll wait for the first trailer, and we'll come out when we got a bit more news, and we'll try and keep you updated with it. But just moving on from there, we obviously want to talk about Deadpool 2. Now Deadpool 2 has obviously started its production. It's a film directed by David Leitch, who directed John Wick and those very cool, successful Keanu Reeves films. And in this, we've also had our first reveals at Domino, played by Zazie Beetz, who's obviously, let's say it, she's not the same as the comic portrayal, but that's not an issue. As long as they get the spirit of the character right, I don't seem to have a problem. And if it's done in the same vein as Deadpool, where the character still retains a lot of the character traits, there shouldn't really be a problem at all. The only thing I would sort of have a little bit of a wince about is the fact that they didn't give her her black domino around her eye. I still think that the character could have benefited from that. The colour, the casting, none of that matters in terms of what they've done with her. I think that the actual domino is what makes the character. So that would be something that I would really have wanted to see, but we'll see what happens. As long as she looks and acts like the character, then we shouldn't have a problem. As long as she acts like the character, we won't have a problem. That then moves us on to Cable. Josh Brolin is playing the character in this film, so it's slightly different to what I thought he would look like. He looks like he's just came off the set of Terminator, but that's not actually a bad thing. As long as, again, he portrays it well, I'll be very open-minded. The only thing is, I'd have loved him to give him more of an X-Men look to him, in terms of him at least wearing the blue and yellow. I mean, Cable, when you see him in some of these other pieces, it just looks massive, big, brawn, and just ferocious looking. You know, the kind of thing that they say at the end of the first Deadpool, Dolph Lundgren, that's kind of what you envision. Some people had the idea that Stephen Lang from the Avatar films could portray him, and that's not a bad shout either. But if I have to say, I think Josh Brolin really will do a good job, and I hope he does a good job with the character. And I want to see how he interacts with Deadpool himself, because that's what will make or break the film. As long as the overall film of Deadpool 2 carries along the same feeling and themes that came from the first film, then it shouldn't really be a problem. While we're talking Fox, we might as well have a look at this. There's news that has come out that they are rebooting for the millionth time Fantastic Four again. Now, I'm not sure they should do this. I think they should just give the rights back to Marvel. But it does look like the director, or the would have been director of the Flash movie, Seth Green, is in talks to perhaps direct. I know he's writing the script for it, and we'll see what will happen with the film. I'm not optimistic about it, because they've had chances to do it before. The last film wasn't very good. There were scripting issues with that. But who knows, maybe they'll get it right with this film, but we'll have to reserve judgment and just wait and see. Moving on from there, we come to DC news, and DC news that we've got is obviously that they're making Flashpoint into an actual live action film. So it's been covered in other mediums. The television series has covered it in its last series. There was a direct to DVD movie that came out, an animated feature, which handled the story very well, but so young into its infancy, the DCEU would choose to do a story this bold and this brave. It kind of makes you think, well, why? You know, build your universe. Are they trying to retcon things? Because largely what Flashpoint allows you to do is change elements about your universe. The idea that it's not Bruce Wayne in the story who's Batman, it's Thomas Wayne, as I say, is Batman, and Martha Wayne is the Joker, and Bruce Wayne is actually dead. So that would be interesting to have a film where you don't have Ben Affleck playing the Batman. But do I believe that Ezra Miller could carry this whole film on his own? I don't know. It does also lend the idea that there would be a supporting cast of these DCEU characters such as Wonder Woman and Aquaman in this alternative reality where they are slightly different and darker versions of them themselves. But that's not here nor there, because within the DCEU we haven't really established these characters as being very heroic at this point. Maybe the Justice will change that and we'll end up with some heroic versions of the characters that we know and love. But we'll have to see. But again, I'm keeping my eye on this story and I will just keep updating you with information as it comes through. Which leads us to another story, part of this DCEU information. Casey Affleck came out recently and claimed that his brother Ben Affleck is no longer in talks to star as the Batman. So everything that we've recently heard coming out from Comic-Con, where he talked about his passion for the project, wanting to work with Matt Reeves, the director of the potential trilogy of Batman films, seems to be on the back burner, let's say. Which, you know, we'll reserve judgment because obviously Case is saying it, but it's enough for us to speculate that maybe there is more to the story about him not being Batman long term. So maybe some of this DCEU Flashpoint stuff would retcon it to kind of have a younger Bruce Wayne or somebody else portray the character or act in the role, which isn't unheard of. You know, they did it with Edward Norton, where Mark Ruffalo took the role of Bruce Banner, and it worked out largely. But so young into its infancy, who knows? I don't know. We'll have to see what happens with that. But I for one would prefer that he stayed on. I didn't hate his Batman. I thought it was one of the best portrayals of the Batman that I've seen. But it's down to him. Obviously, if it's not for him, the project, then perhaps he needs to move on and let somebody come in who's going to be more passionate about the project. But it would be sad to see him go this early, and the fact that he is starting to become the face of the DCEU. Other news that's come out, which sort of come out of left field really, was the fact that they've made, or they are looking to make, a live action Obi-Wan Kenobi film. Now, we don't have any story ideas about what they're looking to do with it, or which version of Obi-Wan Kenobi they're looking to do it with, but chances are most of us will have had an idea that it would be Ewan McGregor portraying the character, and he's starting to get a bit older himself, so perhaps it's that older version of him that's living on Tatooine and has adventures that way. But what did his character do between the time at the end of the Revenge of the Sith and the start of Star Wars A New Hope? Maybe that kind of stuff could be explored. Maybe had a series of adventures that we're not quite sure on. I, for myself, I'm not familiar with the books, but I'm interested to kind of see which version it is and how far they'll actually go into the story. Is it going to lead up to the point where we have a young Luke Skywalker approaching him, or could it be something else? I don't know. Leave your thoughts. Let me know what you think, guys, on that. And finally, the last story that I want to cover is just that we've had confirmation. Not that nobody didn't think he was going to do it, but there was a point where he came out and said, I'm not making any more films. So that's that. And then we were looking at other actors to portray the role. Daniel Craig has decided to sign on to do another James Bond film. So he came out with the reveal on the Stephen Colbert Show, and I'm interested to see what he does with it. As long as he brings his passion to the project, like he did with a few of the earlier ones. Maybe not the Quantum of Solace, but everything else has been okay largely. The last couple of films, the last film particularly, wasn't that great compared to Skyfall, but who knows? As long as he brings his passion, then I'm open to seeing what happens with that. But, you know, yeah, James Bond is James Bond. You can't really, the formula's the same. So we'll see what happens with that, but I'm interested. But yeah, that's it, guys. Let me know what you think. Is there anything else that I've missed that I should be covering, should be looking at in regards to movie news? Let me know. Just tell me in the comment section. And yeah, if you like what you're hearing,